Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back to another custom doll video. Today we are going to be making the blue water fairy. So if those words didn't make sense to you, you might not have seen that I've been doing a rainbow fairy series of customs here on my channel. And the way that I did that, because I have to make everything convoluted and difficult, is that I wanted to do, as I said, a rainbow of fairies. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, and then also pink on the end there. And we are on blue today, but I also have them corresponding to an item in nature that is that color. So like the red fairy was the red berry fairy because a lot of berries are red, and blue is the water fairy. Now I do know that technically speaking, water is like clear, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to do a blue water fairy. Like I love water, I like the rain, I like swimming, I like lakes and ponds. Like I love the water. So I just felt like I had to include water in the series somehow, and obviously it was going to be the color blue. So we're just going to suspend our disbelief a smidgen for this one, but that is what we are going to be crafting today. So I am a little bit nervous for this one just because his design is one that I am particularly excited for. I really enjoy like the concept art I have for this. So there's a little bit more pressure on because I want to make this really good and really look as nice, like a transition from the concept art to the actual doll as possible. So I guess we're gonna try. Before I get into it though, I do have to do my typical disclaimer. I know I have it in text at the beginning of the video, but just the audio version here is that doll customizing is an adult craft. It's definitely not something that kids should be doing because there's sharp objects and chemicals and heat and who knows what else that happens during the course of customizing a doll. It's just something that you definitely should be doing with caution if you are an adult, and if you're not an adult, maybe just don't do that yet. So that is the disclaimer, but let's go ahead and start making the blue water fairy. I'm going to be using an Alistair Wonderland doll as the base for my blue fairy. The first totally normal and not weird at all step to customizing him is to remove his head. Once that is done, we also have to remove his hair. I start out by just using scissors to get the bulk of it off. To remove the remaining hair, I use tweezers and pliers and go in through the neck hole to scrape all the plugs out. Once our doll has received the head cleansing that I can only dream of, he is bald and ready to be given new hair. The final prep step is to remove his factory face paint. I use 100% acetone nail polish remover to do this, using both a paper towel and a Q-tip to remove his face. Afterwards, it is very important to wash the head in warm, soapy water so that the acetone doesn't damage the vinyl. Now it's finally time to add something instead of just removing things. I use epoxy sculpt to create the pointed ears for my fairy. I mix equal parts A and B until they are unified and then get to sculpting. Epoxy is a favorite sculpting medium for doll customizers because its composition means that generally it will stick to plastic and vinyl, and therefore your epoxy pieces usually don't need to be glued down like an air-dry clay piece would. But honestly, I don't find I enjoy the process of working with it all that much, and I think I might be exploring other mediums in the future. I'm not really a sculptor, so those other mediums might also be terrible, but only time will tell. That being said, after some effort, we do get one ear sculpted, and through the magic of editing, the matching ear is now done as well. Now, some of you may have noticed something with this sculpting, so please enjoy the video of me painting the ears while I explain myself. Throughout this entire fairy series, the ears have given me so much trouble. On my first doll, I sculpted the ears directly onto the head, and when I reattached the head and body, they popped off. Since then, I have used various amounts of wire in different ways to attempt to make the ears more stable and better attached to the head, and none of those methods have worked for me. I do completely understand that that is probably a me issue, but for the blue fairy, we are going back to my roots, and I did sculpt the ears directly onto the head. Only this time, instead of the ears popping off being a sad surprise, I intend to purposefully remove them before reuniting body and head, and then gluing them on afterwards. If I can't fix the problem, I will manipulate it to my advantage. Anyway, this is what the ears look like while they are still attached and after a couple of coats of paint. I also added a touch of pastel to the face while I was here. Now we get to start working on the hair. In all of my previous videos, I have cut the hair hanks in half, but I do want the blue fairy to have quite long hair, so we're using the full strand. I just take a tiny piece, loop it over my finger so that I can pick it up with my rerouting tool, and stab it into his head. Normally, this is where I would say, and after doing that 1,000 times, you get this. However, because I was using the full length of the hair, I did end up running out. So, this is where we are at for now while I wait for more hair to arrive in the mail. I guess that means we will just be moving on to his outfit. Okay, actually, here's a 6-second intermission to show that I blushed the body before working on the outfit. I want to start with his skirt, which means we will actually be starting with his belt. To make this, I'm using jewelry wire and blue stone beads. I roughly measure the circumference of his waist with the wire, then start stringing the beads on. Once I have enough beads on the wire, I wrap it back around his waist and tie it together, cutting off the excess wire. Having the belt attached to him will make creating the rest of the skirt a little bit more difficult, but I felt like it was the best way to ensure the tightest possible fit. The Blue Fairy's concept art does have 3 strands to his belt, but after making strand number 2, I felt like it would look a little bit too chunky if I did 3 strands, so we will be sticking with just the 2. For his skirt proper, I will be using these petals. Wait, hang on. There, now they are individual petals I can use. Now, what I wanted to do was glue the first layer of petals directly to the bottom strand of the belt. Sounds simple enough, right? No. What you see me doing here is trying to use Loctite to glue the petals to the stones, because the first row really needs to be secure, so I wanted to use a good glue. However, the Loctite just seeped through the fabric of the fake petals and onto my fingers. It didn't even stick to the stone. I made an attempt at just using hot glue, but predictably that did not work. To be fair, I didn't think it would, I just felt like I had to try. Then I tried to use hot glue to make a bead of glue on the petals that I could then put the Loctite on top of. I thought that was genius, and it worked precisely one time. Then for some reason, every petal after that refused to cooperate. So, what you are seeing currently is me very inexpertly sewing the petals to the belt. It definitely doesn't look perfect because I am not super at sewing, but it keeps the petals secure, and that is all I can ask for. I then tested a couple of petals to make sure that I could use hot glue after the first layer, and that turned out great, which is good because I think I would have gone mad if I had to sew the entire thing. After I have all of the petals glued into place, I'm going to glue some more jewelry wire to the underside of the skirt. Once again referencing the concept art, I want the bottom of the skirt to curl upward and be covered in pearls so that it is reminiscent of a breaking wave. Because hot glue is my best friend in this project, as it is in all projects, I glued a few more petals to the jewelry wire to defy gravity a bit. Then I'm going to start out gluing pearls to the jewelry wire using Mod Podge, and then I will move on to gluing them all over the rest of the skirt. You can see that I made an attempt at using a diamond painting tool to pick up the pearls, but that didn't work, so we are just using tweezers instead. And this is how the skirt turned out. I really love it, although I did have to consciously rein myself in from just completely overdoing the pearls. Then it's time to turn our attention to the top. I wanted it to be made of netting, and in the end, I thought that simply repurposing some fishnets would be the easiest way to accomplish that, so I bought some navy blue fishnets and got to cutting.
It was really hard to figure out what shape I wanted to go with and how I was going to get all this stuff to attach. Basically, it was just a whole adventure trying to get through all of this and a lot of hot glue involved.
And this is how the top turned out. Oliver, what was that? Don't worry about it yet. Anyway, the rest of his hair came in, so I finished his reroute. Then all that was left to do was pour some glue in through the neck hole to make sure it stayed put. Hint, hint, ominous foreshadowing. Obviously, the Blue Fairy needs a new face. I have his hair tied back with an old sock and a rubber band because, for reasons I will get into later, I couldn't use pins to secure the sock. Then I'm starting off with just some white acrylic paint to block in the shape of his eyes. Much like all of my face-ups as of late, I am using just paint because I like it. Also, sorry for the fact that my hand is consistently in the way. I feel like I did a little bit better job this time of keeping his head in frame, but I didn't keep myself from blocking it. Then I start using a few different shades of blue to paint his eyebrows. Next, I start to outline his eyes and also start to have the same problem that I have in every voiceover I do for a custom video where I don't know what to say. It seems that it doesn't matter how many times I practice face-ups because while my art skills might improve, my voiceover skills do not. I use a nail art dotting tool to place his irises. The more I practice this, the more I find that it is a helpful technique both to try to keep the eyes looking in the same direction and also to keep the edges of the eyes smooth and rounded. Also, if you see the pan of watercolor pencils in the background and are thinking that I have lied to you and am using more than just paint, those are there because sometimes I use water and the brush to pull up pigment from the pencils, but I don't use the pencils as intended, so I think it still counts as an all-paint face-up. Yay, pupils! From here on out, it is just building up detail like additional colors in the irises and adding eyelashes until the doll starts to look a little bit less uncanny and a little bit more humanoid. I think face-ups are really funny because I find it so hard to pinpoint the exact moment that they start to look good instead of looking awful. I feel like most of the time they just look super strange. I do like how his face turned out though, so on to the next step. The next step in question being pain. So, remember when I was doing this? Well, when I ran out of hair and had to order more, I went ahead and put glue in the head to secure what I had already done. I was afraid that in the time it would take for more hair to arrive, the head might get jostled, and I just didn't want any of the hair I had already rooted to come loose. That, friends, was the wrong decision. The second round of rerouting led to me breaking not one, not two, but 3 needles because of the glue that was in the head. That's the reason that I did not use pins to secure the sock during the face-up process. After finishing the face, I washed the hair with room temperature water, and I think because there was already a layer of glue in the head, the second layer of glue I put in wasn't able to reach the new plugs, and I ended up losing about half of the hair. Thankfully, when the hair dried and was parted correctly, it wasn't super noticeable, so I didn't have to find a way to go back and yet again reroute a head that had already broken 3 of my needles. That left me here, where I should have been able to go ahead and just reattach the head. But right about here is when I started to have doubts. I think in the concept art, the netting looks really fun and cool, but I just wasn't loving it on the doll. I don't know if that's because of the scale, because I couldn't find the exact perfect color, or just because I didn't execute the concept well. But I was unhappy, and I didn't want to have regrets, so I knew something had to be done. So I cut off the old top and decided to remake it. I wanted to retain the idea of the cuffs around the neck and the wrists, but otherwise I would be using pearls because I really enjoy the pearl elements of this design. And this is what the new top looks like. Can I still call it a top? I feel like this is getting to the point where it's more a piece of jewelry than a piece of clothing. Either way though, this is the final look and I am much happier with it. So now, after just a little bit of assembly and a few more pearls in his hair, I can introduce you to Lucian, the blue water fairy. Despite the turmoil in the process of his creation, which frankly is becoming normal for me, I think he turned out really well. I also thankfully had a good day for photographing him, so that helps. I did end up keeping his hair full length, which is much longer than it was in the concept art. I realized that a lot of dolls in this series have short to mid-length hair, so I thought that the water fairy would be the most appropriate to go ahead and give long hair to. Also, I am aware that his skirt is fairly scandalous. To be fair, it wasn't exactly modest in the concept art, but I know it's a lot. I think the weight of the petals on the skirt weigh down the belt just enough for it to be questionable, but we are just going to ignore that because this is a doll and it's just for fun. So yes, this is Lucian. This ended up being kind of a shorter video, so I apologize if I didn't go as in-depth as you guys prefer. Definitely let me know in the comments if you like my customizing videos to be on the shorter side, or if you would prefer for me to go more in-depth. Either way though, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, if you could like the video, that would be extremely helpful. My doll customizing videos take the most effort and have the most heart involved in them, so if there's any content that I really want to try to push to be more popular, it is this content. But yes, guys, that is going to be it for today. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night or whatever it might be, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.